Welcome to the AirCon Vault. Here you can find recordings of the live streams from Airwiggle's audio conference. These are made free thanks to our sponsors: A Sound Effect, Aftertouch Audio, Boom Library, FMON, Game Audio Learning, Game SoundCon, Kiloheart, Rev Rooms, Soundcuts, Strata from Audio Kinetic, and Airwiggles, the online home for audio people. We hope you enjoy the video.
Welcome to the panel, a conversation with RX-cellent dialogue editors. My name is Tera, and I'll just do like a super brief introduction, so then we can get on to everyone else's introductions. But I am currently a freelance sound designer, content creator, musician, what have you. But earlier in the year, I was a QA analyst for Unbroken Studios. Unfortunately, I was laid off, but yeah, just been kind of delving into sound design, and I'm super happy to be hosting this panel. And yeah, I'd like to kind of turn it over and have everyone else introduce themselves and also name one random fact about you. So let's start with Abbie. Go right ahead.
Oh, I wasn't expecting to be first now, but I think of a fact. Oh God. I'm Abbie. I am a dialogue editor at Boom Post in Soho in London. I've been there for 3 years, just a little after 3 years. And my random fact is that I know the alphabet better backwards than I do forwards. That's quite a random fact.
Yeah, I like that. All right, let's go to Adam.
Hi. Yep. My name's Adam. I am a senior voice designer at Massive Entertainment. Before that, I was dialogue supervisor at Lionhead Studios before that shut down. And I've also worked at Jagex and Midway in the past, always games. And let's see, fun fact. Before I worked in the games industry, I was a lifeguard and used to teach surfing. And I'm still a big fan of the water.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And let's move on to Lewis. You're muted. Lewis. There he goes.
My name's Lewis. I'm a sound designer and dialogue editor and musician and composer. I work for Soundcuts, and we're an audio outsourcer, so I kind of do a bit of everything. But recently been doing a lot of the dialogue in there. I've worked there for about 3 to 4 years or so. Fun, quote-unquote, fact about me. I broke my arm doing arm wrestling, and here is a scar. There you go, all the way down the back.
Wow.
So, that's fun. As a side tangent, Abbie, I really need to hear you sing the alphabet quite backwards because I can't comprehend it. I don't understand how you understand it better forwards.
I can't sing it backwards. I can just say it backwards. But is that something that needs to happen?
No, not at all. I'm just, unless the chat wants it. Well, no, I'm not going to.
It feels like. I mean, I can do it. ZYXWDETSRQPONMLKJHDFEDCBA.
Wow.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Thanks.
Yeah. Round of applause.
It's so stupid. Ow. I don't know. I really don't. I feel like I watched a film once where someone had to do it backwards in a film, and it scarred me, so I learnt it.
Lots of scars.
It's so random, but I hope people enjoyed that. But here we are.
Did you win, Lewis?
Yeah.
I was winning. I didn't win overall, as you can probably tell. In my head,
would you win again?
I was like, here. I can't even watch arm wrestling now. As soon as someone in the pub just puts their hands together, I'm like, I can't look. Worst thing about it, didn't have my recorder with me because it was just such a clean. Like it was authentic. You don't have to snap vegetables for this. Anyway, I might have to leave off this topic.
All right. Well, nice icebreakers. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. I guess a random fact about me. I was actually supposed to be a pharmacist. I went to pharmacy school. I had my associate's degree in pre-pharmacy, and I lasted a semester and a half, and I was like, I got to get out of here. So that's when I switched careers and actually went into music instead. So there's your random fact, because I didn't really share one.
It's interesting.
Cool. Yeah. Well, again, thank you guys for being part of the panel, and thank you, Airwiggles, for having us. We are very appreciative of it. I think we should move on to another question. This one's going to be kind of just right into the nitty gritty. So let's ask, to what extent, we're going to be talking about RX, right? So to what extent do you use tools such as RX declick as opposed to editing something manually?
Maybe you guys go first, because I think my thoughts on this are going to be really different. So I think maybe you guys start and I'll chime in later.
Yeah, sure. Do you want to take it on?
Do you want to go? Okay. Yeah, I mean, it really is going to be different for every media, right? Because in games, we are not always doing the editing ourselves, but if we are, it's like cleaning stuff that was missed or cleaning in-house stuff, because quite a lot of the time we work with outsourcers who do a lot of the recording and editing and like sometimes even mastering. So I guess I don't ever really like draw in the waveform. I was also terrible at that as well. I was always introducing my own artifact. But yeah, like using a declick tool, or I mean, there's some new ones as well. We talked about this the other day, Abbie, didn't we? But yeah, like I'll often use the knock setting to get rid of like big bumps, or like a big high pass to get rid of like a thump that's just snuck its way through. Go on, Liz, what's your take on that?
I use it like exclusively, like all the time, because it tends to, as a tool, it's pretty good at, I essentially use it as like an analysis tool. It's good at obviously getting clicks out and kind of analyzing for those spikes and those frequency hits. But it gets kind of just a lot of things out depending on the settings you have for it. Like if there is a bit of plosive, sometimes I'll just use a regular declick on it and it'll just get rid of it without being too destructive. So I found it really useful for that. I predominantly use RX, and going on to what you just mentioned, Adam, we will usually get the files from the studio itself that's been recording, and we'll just get them completely raw. So we do the majority of the cleanup there and then pass it on to the studios. So yeah, I extensively use declick, and the attenuate function within it is like my bread and butter.
Yeah, it's really interesting because it's kind of similar to me in some respects. So I will put things like, I'll send my audio from Pro Tools into like the spectral analyzer on the side, and then obviously send it back when I'm done. But I'll use a lot of the functions within within RX itself to then, well, essentially restore and clean all the audio. It's really rare that I ever draw clicks out, I would say. But the thing that I like the most about that is, and instead of just rendering it from the declick module itself, for example, is that you can go in and look at the spectral like actual graph and like go in and take them out and be really surgical about it, so you're preserving all of the dialogue without, you're not taking anything out or being, as you say, destructive or anything. But I use declick not so much as often as I use decrackle. Decrackle is a really, really good function, which for high-end clicks in particular, I think works really nicely. But yeah, so I would also say I exclusively use it. But if it's like generally like through the dialogue, it's fine, and it is just like a random click that's in a bit of dead space, then I will probably just do a little clip and then nudge, similar to you, Adam. So I guess I kind of use a bit of both depending on what I think it needs.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense, especially if you have just that one instance versus it all across the board. It's a lot easier to just nix that one little thing manually, and that makes
Exactly.
a lot of sense.
Yeah.
For me personally, because I do have some experience as well, as a YouTuber who does like music reactions, I talk a lot. And so there's a lot of mouth clicks and things like that in my recordings. So I have like a template where I just use the mouth declick. And even with that, though, sometimes there's some clicks that I still don't quite like, and they still made it through the pass. And so in Adobe, I will try to find a way to crossfade things, manually edit so that it just sounds a little bit more pleasing to the ears, even after that first pass with declick. But yeah, that's really cool that we all kind of have a way to, go through and use those kinds of tools. Like RX is so, so awesome. So awesome. Okay, so next question. Let's talk about breaths. So when you have a lot of dialogue, right? Naturally, people breathe. So for your particular projects and things like that, do you keep the breaths in or do you take them out?
We had a really interesting discussion about this the other day, so,
Yeah.
so you might have to tell us to stop talking, Tara.
I'll do my best.
Yeah, I mean, we in TV and stuff, you know, what I'm working on, we would keep, yeah, we keep it in because it has to sound as natural as possible, you know. And also, I think we do a lot of like breath recording in ADR to like pick up things to create this like sense of you want to feel more intimate with a character at a certain point in time, or like, you know, feel connected to them in a way. And breath work is a really, really good way to do that. But I mean, you guys, I know Adam, we said it was like a different approach from time to time for different things.
Depends on the purpose, right? Because if we're doing like I don't know, like a scene or a cinematic, and we're doing it all in one go, or if we've got two actors in the same place, or if it's motion capture, then we want to keep all that stuff for like a sense of life. But in if you're doing a robot character, then you don't want the robot to breathe unless that's part of the robot's identity. So I mean, and like it can be really important, breath as like a character trait. Like the most iconic versions, like Darth Vader, you know, his breathing is the thing you know the most about him. Like that's the thing you associate with his sonic identity. So yeah, I mean, we will often like ask recording studios or ask our editors when we're working on a project to keep in the breath, unless it's like, you know, longer than a second or something. And then we might have to go through and top and tail stuff if it's a little too slow, or, you know, like you can ask people to use their judgment, but they never know exactly what you want. So unless you're really like, you're going to send them a document about this is how we want you to treat breath, then, you know, who's going to have time to read it as well? Then yeah, it really depends on the project.
Yeah.
Lewis?
Yeah, to add on to that, that's exactly kind of my thoughts as well. I think it all depends on the performance, because you'll get a lot of actors that come in, and particularly for games, where they're really trying to sell that emotion, and they really need those breaths in there. For me, I'll usually take off the starting breath going into it, at least within games, because then it'll just be the dialogue that's immediate. Not only is it easy for implementation, but it is also feels right. There's so much going on as well. You're not necessarily needing that lead in. And yeah, if it's more than like a second or two, unless it's directly related to the performance, you can probably fade it out and then have the next line come in a little bit later. Otherwise, you can just get things a bit messy in the mix. But yeah, it ultimately depends on the performance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super interesting.
Yeah, really. So on that note, do you guys have any like projects, not like of your own, but just in general, like games or films that kind of had an interesting use of breath that like makes you kind of remember that movie or that game?
I mean, yeah, there's a fair few I can think of. I mean, the most recent one I can think of is Nosferatu. Like they use that breathwork as like sound design, like all the way through the film, and it's super interesting use, which I think is was something quite interesting, and I don't think I've seen that before. But then another, and again, I'm going to repeat what we were talking about the other day, but obviously for everyone else, I've never had like I've had one film I've had this like experience with because of like breaths. Basically, it's like when I watched 1917, which is an incredible film. If you haven't seen it, you absolutely should. And I felt so in that film. And at the very, very end, the like lead guy like goes over to this tree and he just like slides down the tree and sits down. And he just does like a breath in and a breath out. And you sort of subconsciously notice, you know, I did that breath with him at that time. I felt so connected to that character, and I just felt every single emotion I was supposed to feel throughout the entire film, from an inhale and an exhale, which is insane. Like that is just, I think it's just so clever to make you feel so connected to a character and whatever they've just been through, and you know, throughout the film.
Yeah.
But that was one of the most insane things that I think I've ever experienced watching a film. Really, really interesting use of breath.
It can be very powerful if used correctly. Absolutely.
100%. It really
Lewis.
conveys the emotion, for sure.
Go next, Lewis.
Lewis, do you think of one?
Adam kind of, off the top of my head, not really. Adam mentioned a really good one earlier, which was the one that came to my head, which was the whole Darth Vader breathing, like the ominous, just the presence that it can give. I think is really cool. But apart from that, I mean, Abbie's answer was so much better than what I could come up with.
Sorry.
So it's all good.
It's only because we really got into it the other day when we were chatting, like having our little like planning call or whatever, and I was just like, oh yeah, actually this is so interesting, and like, but we were talking about it for like a solid 20 minutes.
Yeah, we were.
Oh, we could keep going.
We could, yeah.
I've got a couple of things I wanted to talk about quickly. So project-wise, I worked on the Division 1 and 2, and for that we've got this character called Isaac, who's this like disembodied voice, and he's like it is a robot voice. It's supposed to help you as the character know what's around you and like assess danger and alert you to things, or like send messages. And we recorded this actor Brandon Keener for that, for those projects, and because it's like an artificial voice, Isaac shouldn't breathe. So occasionally we would have a breath slip through, and then the processing for that character is like incredibly compressed. It's massively compressed. There's a glitch effect put over the top of it, and any sort of white noisy breath or like shh or s's really come out. And so sometimes you just hear Isaac take a breath in the game and go, oh no, one of them just managed to get out. Like, so we had to go in and find the source, and it's occasionally that would happen. That was kind of like, you forget sometimes because you like listening to the actor, you're listening to the raw recordings, and you just occasionally somebody else would pick up the processing for that character, and you go like, oh no, Isaac's breathing. got to suffocate him. But yeah, Lewis mentioned this thing about cutting the beginning, right? Because quite often people will take an in-breath before they speak. And so you don't necessarily want that unless the point is to watch them open their mouth or like have a sound or animation, again, in games, right? But also we'll often have like a breathing system for characters. And for example, in the Avatar game, the main character breathes, and as they're breathing, you kind of want the system to kind of match what they're doing and saying. So if they're going to say something, then you don't want to have an out breath and then say a line. So yeah, that's one of the things that like games sometimes does really well, sometimes doesn't quite get right. Like Naughty Dog's games usually have an amazing system for this, where they'll have a line and then it'll be like an in-breath, and it's all systemic. Yeah, and then films, I mentioned The Wrestler last time with Mickey Rourke. I forget when that came out, but it's like 2007 or something. And the whole way through, he's this hulking, big, massive, muscly wrestler guy, and he's doing this for the love of it, probably a little bit past his prime. And the whole way through, he's got this like nose breathing kind of nose whistle, and it's on top of everything. Like it's almost like somebody walked the track for him, but like they did the breathing for the whole film, and he just has this like frailty because of it. He sounds like he's about to just pass out and keel over, or like he's not breathing enough. And they've done it so beautifully. It's like a really great use of breath in film.
Awesome. Yeah, some really good stuff there. Cool. Let's move on to recovering dialogue. So how do you actually recover dialogue when it's nearly inaudible due to things such as Velcro, like a lot of noise, or just like an overall bad recording?
I mean, again, this is going to be super different for me, but I mean, I'm happy to kick it off. Basically, like we have obviously in production side of things, like there's a lot of difficult environments that scenes get recorded in, and a lot of the time, there's a lot of work that has to go into that, because otherwise we end up doing an obscene amount of ADR, which nobody really wants. The whole point of what we do is to preserve the acting and the performance that was got on the day. And you know, this ADR is almost always a second choice, unless it's like we're changing something quite drastically, you know, in terms of a technical sense of using ADR. And I think that, you know, there's some really, really good tools out there, which I was mentioning to the guys in the last little chat we had about. We have a lot of like noise reduction tools now that we use. One of which has become the most common that I've seen most editors use is Hush, which is a great sort of AI algorithm tool which just can separate background from actual dialogue, and it can boost the dialogue, turn down the reverb, and just get rid of any sort of like nasty background. And it doesn't always work like completely well. Sometimes if you put the settings too high, it can, you know, create a lot of horrible stuff that you just think, and you end up compromising the actual dialogue in itself. But if you use it well and subtly, you know, you can save quite a lot of dialogue from the recording. And there's other tools that I think we use mostly in the studios. We have Accentize DX Revive, the pro version of that, which is also another really, really good tool, and it's becoming one that I've noticed a lot of other editors talking about a lot. And yeah, and then aside from that, but I always do, when I'm doing a pass to recover dialogue, I always put stuff through RX first. So I try and do as much as I can almost manually, and then I'll go to Hush afterwards to like see if it can do more to what I've already done, basically. But then sometimes it will have to be the reverse, where a scene is so noisy that you just think, I'm not even sure if I can salvage this. Like, let me see what Hush will do first, and then we can go from there, kind of thing. But it's very different to obviously you guys with mocap suits, for example, and like that Velcro, which Adam, you were talking about to me the other day.
Yeah, with motion capture, and performance capture, there's a lot of Velcro involved. So that's the sound that we often end up trying to get rid of. Sometimes we'll have a line that's got a bit of crosstalk or bleed as well. Those are things that we have to fix. And in a game, because you're not listening to like a stereo or surround track, you're listening to individual voice assets placed in a 3D environment or 2D, but it's placed like in the game engine and playing back in real time. So it's kind of rendering it for you from that position. And unless it's a pre-rendered cinematic, if you have crosstalk, then you might suddenly end up, just like you would in a film, I suppose, but you'd end up with the dialogue, if it's panned, jumping into the middle for a second when there's a crosstalk. So yeah, we like have to really make sure that people aren't talking over each other. There's no bleed. And usually it's like a lav mic on the top of the head here. And then, yeah, like all these denoisers, Abbie's mentioned a bunch of them. I'm still using a lot of RX stuff. And I've had a little go with DX Revive, but that's something I've not really played with. I want to try the pro version. I've heard that you said that there's some more control than that.
It has so many more options. I mean, it's still just one dial, but it's got so many more options of like it's got different like algorithms, I think, where you can pick, you know, between different sort of how much cleanup you want it to do and to what extent, and you know, like it's a really interesting tool. If you get a chance to use it, you definitely should look into it, because I think it's becoming quite a big thing from what I can gather. Lewis, do you have any thoughts?
Can't hear
as
Lewis.
well. No, hello,
back.
check.
Yes.
You are. There you
Right,
are.
awesome. Sorry. No, I completely agree. I have had the experience with the X Revive as well, and it's awesome. You did do like a trial as well, so it's worth checking out at least. With myself and my projects I've had, one of the key things to kind of avoid this in the first place, if you can, is if you've got an audio director on set or in the studio to listen out for that when it's happening. I know it might not always be the case, especially if there's mocap suits involved, but that can be the make or break. My boss Adele was in a session with mocap and just mentioned to the producer at the time, and that significantly improved the audio because we didn't have to worry about try to spectrally remove stuff. So that'd be kind of the first port of call for me. Second port of call, if it's possible, is to use other takes if you have got them taken, and they can be kind of a backup. This is kind of like it's not full ADR, but you kind of got something there as a backup anyway. And then failing that, again, techniques like you've already mentioned, using noise removal, try and spectrally remove stuff if you can, unless it is something really, really difficult. And in the worst case, ADR, but as you said, try and avoid that at all costs. It's expensive, it's time consuming. Yeah.
Yeah, great answers. You guys are talking a lot about ADR, so I'm going to kind of move into this question. Also, people in the chat, feel free to keep submitting your questions. We will try to get to some of them towards the end. And this question, I mean, you guys talked about editing, but the question is, have you experienced editing ADR or actors re-recording lines in general, which you guys also talked about? So what challenges are present when that occurs? I'm actually going to start with this one because I had, as being a QA analyst, I actually was embedded in the audio field. So I was helping the audio department fairly often, checking things, you know, making sure that the audio is working properly, writing up bugs when they weren't. And there was a week where the lead audio designer, who was the only person in the audio department, was actually on vacation, and there was some localization stuff that needed to get done. There was quite a strict deadline, and while the lead audio designer still had to work a little bit, I was able to also help out. And there were a couple of lines where I had to kind of you know, comp things so that the lines were proper. So, for example, there was a line that Ginny Weasley, voice actor, did, and she said like Ravenclaw instead of Hufflepuff or something for the Harry Potter game. And so I had to find through all the other lines that she had recorded, right, the word Hufflepuff and see if I could kind of get that to sound natural as if she still said it in the booth. So that's just like one example that I did without doing, you know, any of that cool fancy ADR stuff. It was literally just me going through the actual takes and just trying to find something that would work, and maybe doing a little bit of pitch shifting where it still sounded natural to kind of reflect the inflection that she had, things like that. So yeah, I'm curious about what you guys have done. I know we kind of already talked a little bit about it, but if there's maybe a more specific example that you can share, that'd be great.
I think one of you guys go first, because I think, yeah, it's you are your own game. You should keep it.
Lewis, you got anything you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, just touching on what you said there about kind of getting the best take and stuff, having like a Frankenstein word that you sometimes create with other takes is quite a fun thing to deal with. In terms of challenges at present, it depends again on the project that's being done. But if you've got something that's been recorded really well in the booth, in the first instance, and then you've got something that isn't, obviously trying to match the two together or vice versa. There was a project I've worked on which is an audio book, but it was kind of like a world. So it's like you're listening to an audio story and like you're in the world as a listener, and trying to match EQs to that when we had ADR sessions and trying to match the world around them was very, very tricky because it's a weird solution of trying to get something super dry and then putting it back into something which is now wet with the rest of the world. So that's one of the challenges that I've come across in the past. It's just to get them both sounding the same, which is a lot more difficult than you'd think.
Yeah, exactly. With I mean, obviously with one thing and another, from 2020 to 2023, a lot of projects were being recorded in different environments to where they had previously been, or in difficult circumstances, or in people's bedrooms. And I talked to a lot of editors at Studio Alice and Junction. In Ubisoft, we have these this sort of like in-source team who do a lot of our recording and casting and editorial, and they handle like the motion capture and stuff. And they were, like a lot of studios, they were sending microphones and things out to people with like setups so they could record themselves. And yeah, there's a lot of like very creative stuff being done to match stuff to previous recordings. But I think in a lot of cases they just kind of went, you know, it's okay. It's going to end up with so much other stuff on top of it. We kind of, you know, I think our tolerance for mismatched recording sessions and like acoustics maybe relaxed a little bit during that period. But I don't know, maybe for some people, not for everyone. We did do a lot of ADR for motion capture stuff that we'd recorded for various projects I've worked on, but that's mostly because sometimes, you know, your voice actor you've cast, they might be in the UK or in Greece or in France or somewhere. And your motion capture and performance capture, all that PCAP stuff's being done in Canada or in London. And so that actor is either brought over for it, but quite often recorded separately. And so it's not really ADR per se if the facial animation is not fixed, but sometimes it is. And so if you've done the motion capture on set, the performance is facially animated, then the actor has to then have the strange experience of ADRing themselves before they've even said the lines. And what can really complicate that is if the actor who's doing the motion capture speaks another language and has a different intonation or cadence to the way that they speak those lines, because, you know, they say, this is a warm body double, they're going to come in and do the lines, we'll record it for temp, and then the actor will ADR over the top. And sometimes that goes beautifully well, and sometimes it's quite a struggle to get the right rhythm, you know, with an actor that's trying to kind of shoehorn their own voice into their own character, but it's been performed by somebody else in advance. So yeah, I mean, depending on the facial animation, hopefully, and usually in the cases, the animation team has some leeway to do a bit of moving around of stuff afterwards and can like sync. But then you need to know between the animation team and the dialogue team, which one of you is responsible for the sync lining up. Because if one of you's tweaking on this side and one of you's tweaking on this side, then you could be like passing like ships in the night. And the sync can just be like flicking back and forward. Like, now it's late, now it's early, what's going on?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like the cross-disciplinary communication is also very crucial to make sure that you don't do work that, you know, is going to make things worse or, you know, cause more time that, you know, you're able to avoid. That's very important to know. Cool. Abbie.
Yeah, I mean, I guess mine is just like from a slightly different point of view. It's always going to be the actors recording themselves. It's very rare that we do like revoicey bits in what we do in terms of TV. But I mean, I think I was going to ask because I was curious about how like specific do you guys have to be like in terms of syncing your recording to your original? Like, is there leeway because it's sort of animation, or is it similar to me wherein, you know, I'm literally having to I have to zoom in so close to see the waveform and then I'm waveform matching? Do you guys do a similar thing, or is there a bit more like leeway?
I mean, in my experience, it really depends again on the project, but sometimes you're taking audio that's been recorded on set and video that's been recorded on set and animation data that's been recorded on set, and you're trying to sync up all three things to make sure that they're exactly in sync. And sometimes there's a frame or two's difference between like everything's on universal time code, but it's like it could be that something is just slightly late for some reason consistently. So you're going to shift all of that dialogue, and then later on somebody comes along and says, well, we're going to make a cut here. So you're cutting the video and the voice and the animation to then shorten everything in one go. And then maybe you've got the final actor who's actually playing that role comes in later, and you're going to like sync that up to the dialogue. So yeah, that's in the case of a cinematic that's been motion captured. But in the majority of cases, it's an animation system that makes the face move. And so you kind of don't care. Like, you can forget about it. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, it's just I don't know anything. This is the thing. I was saying to you when we were prepping, like, it's so interesting. So I don't know much about game at all. So it's really interesting to see how we do the same processes, but they get used differently.
A lot of other stuff going on, exactly.
Yeah. But I think on a ADR side of it, for me, like in terms of challenges, I think the thing that we struggle with the most, or that I've noticed can be really tricky, is like making sure we're matching into the production audio. Like, I've had a few sessions with various actors who have, like, you know, whether they've put on a slight change in their voice when they were filming, and they were filming 8 months ago, and now it's like, oh God, I got to get back into that character and I got to do this voice, and now my pitch isn't right, and then you have to really like work quite hard with them to sort of tell them direct them into what the difference is and why it's not quite right, and can you just drop your pitch a tiny bit? If you project a bit more, it might match a bit better, like, you know. And that is something I think get something along those lines in every session. And that's why a lot of the time, like, you know, sometimes you only need to ADR a line because there's a unremovable noise over one syllable. And if you can get away with using just that syllable in ADR, and as you say, like Frankenstein it a little bit, then it makes such a difference, like, to be able to do that. But then there's other instances where, you know, that match just doesn't work, and because it's too obviously clean, for example. So then you end up having a lot of the lines that we record in ADR, or not a lot, but like, you know, some of them, is to do with like continuity, to make sure that we have a match that feels smooth, because there's nothing worse than making it feel like it is a bit of a Frankenstein puzzle piece. So that can be quite challenging, I think, when you get into a room and just figuring out that match.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about the actors. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Tera. Do you know, just a quick follow-up question, Abbie? Do you, when you prepare for these sessions, do you have like takes from the previous recordings for those actors to listen to, like to get them back into the character?
Yeah, I mean, they'll always, when we go into the room, we'll always have the picture version and you know, their dialogue on the guide track for them to listen to. So, and then it's also a way of like navigating, you know, how do you like to record? Like, every actor is so different. I think I'm on an ADR supervision role at the moment, and I've been working with so many different people, and everybody does it a little bit differently. Some people like to do it in a way that's, okay, I'm going to listen to it and then I'm going to repeat it straight after so that they get the rhythm. Other people really like to do it to sync. Is it like dead onto the picture, and then they might give you a few extra versions afterwards. Some people like to do an entire scene on a run. You know, so it's really yeah, figuring out what works for them, and trying to help them as best you can to make them feel comfortable as well, because there's a whole thing I think about when, you know, you come into ADR and it's such an isolating space because you're an actor who's performed their heart out on a set where the feeling and the emotion and the you know, the time was right, it was the moment, you know, and you have to sort of try and reenact that. It can be quite difficult, I think, and intimidating in a way to then have, like, you know, 4 people sat in a room like, okay, do it. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think you have to just give them what they can, whatever you can, to sort of help them along with that. And in most recently, like, I've had sort of bits from the dialogue editor sent me certain like sync bits, for example, which have been a bit more cleaned up, so they're a bit more intelligible. So then it's been easier for the actors to sort of, okay, listen to it, okay, I'm going. Like, you know, like, it's, yeah, there's definitely things that you can do to prep for that, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Great follow-up question. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I've actually dealt with something very similar. We had the actor for Lee Jordan for the Harry Potter game. The actual actor from the movie, he came in the booth and like recorded Lee Jordan's lines as well, but he's a lot older now, so he had to kind of make himself sound younger, right? And there was a couple of pickup sessions that we did later on, and his pitch was like a lot higher than it was the first session. And so I don't remember, like, because I wasn't able to be a part of any of the pickup sessions or any just recording sessions in general. So I'm not sure if they gave him lines to listen to or what they did, really. I might want to ask the lead audio designer about that. But basically what the lead audio designer had to do was a combination of pitch shifting and like for both, right? Making the original a little bit higher, making the new lines a little bit lower to try to even that out, and a lot of volume balancing. Because I think his was a little bit more shouty for some of the pickups and things like that. So basically everything that you had mentioned, Abbie, like I actually was able to kind of witness in the game as well. As I was testing it, I was like, why does his voice sound so high all of a sudden? So yeah, that's really interesting that we kind of come across those very similar issues. Just doesn't even matter what the media is. You still have those same things that we have to kind of try to resolve the best we can. So
yeah, it's happened a lot as well. Oh, sorry, go on, Adam.
Sorry, Abbie, you go.
No, I was just saying it's happened a lot as well when I've done a fair bit of a few sessions with kids, and especially and like, you know, there's been sessions where, you know, I look at the picture and everything, and it's specifically for the boys, and then, you know, they grow up a little bit in the time between and their voices dropped a little, and then it's like that was a big thing actually, not too long ago for me, like trying to figure out how to get him to say you're speaking a little bit higher than this. Luckily he was super great at doing it, which was just really nice. But that's something I didn't even think about going in. And it was only when he turned up and I was like, oh, you sound different. Bless him. Yeah,
I was just looking something up, but no, like my fault for talking over you, Abbie. I think they've talked about it in some of their dev diaries and things, or maybe like the making of. But for God of War, you know, they had in the game there's like the son character, Atreus, and he was played by this actor whose name I'm gonna just quickly look up, Sonny Sulik, I think. And he was quite young when he first started that project, but games take a long time to make. And, you know, films can obviously be like a TV series, they can be shot over time, but games can take years and years, as I think you all know. And his voice changed because he was going from age like 12 or 13, whatever, to 14, 15, 16 as the game was being developed. And so I think at some point they had to re-record a lot of his dialogue because his voice had now permanently changed. And it wasn't like, you know, when you do a game as well, like with film and TV, you don't necessarily do it chronologically. So you couldn't just go like, oh, he's getting older during the game, because, okay, now we need to add some lines for the tutorial at the very beginning of the game. And so I think they re-recorded about half the game because of that permanent change, that actor.
Yeah.
crazy.
Dang. You try to resolve what you can in the booth, right, as it's happening, but sometimes you got to be creative or just have them come back in to re-record. So, wow, that was a really nice discussion. I like that a lot. Let's do one more question. Just looking at the time for us, and then we can kind of go into some of the Q&A from the chat. So this one is kind of more of like personally, but still very important. How do you manage focus when you're editing for so many hours?
I don't. I lose focus all the time. So my workflow is generally, I'll have a bunch of files come in, let's say like 300, 400 files, what have you, and I'll throw them into Reaper. I have a command set up, so when I open it up in the external editor, i.e. RX, I'll select 32 files because that's the limitation on it, and it'll create copies of those, so I've got ways to come back as well. And once I've gone through those 32 files, I will just do something that's not looking at a screen, because if I'm just sat there forever, I'll either do one of two things, which is focus too much on the editing, and I'll be pitching until, let's say there's an actor who's got a specific pitch that they kind of resonate at, and I'll be listening to that all the time and I won't be able to hear anything else. Or I'll just completely lose interest and I'll just do a really bad job and miss things. So I think regular breaks, not so long that you're not doing the work, 'cause that's quite important, but regular like breaks after every batch is kind of how I work it. And sometimes if you're working through something and they're just, you know, you're not doing a good enough job because you're distracted by something, just take a break then. I think it's good to, because otherwise you'll drive yourself crazy.
I was about to say, yeah,
Kind of like a Pomodoro technique or something. Kind of do a certain amount of work and then break, and then it's kind of like a focus.
It's like is it Pomodoro technique? Is that what
Pomodoro?
you said? Yeah.
You have to find, like, for me, I have to find like certain points where I can break in between. So that could be, okay, I've got to the end of the scene on this pass, or I've edited this character's ADR, or I did the crowd edit for this, you know, like, okay. And then it's like at those points I can like take a break before it's like, I'm going to come back and I'm going to start a new task. I struggle to take a break if I'm in the middle of a task, you know? But yeah, sometimes, as I say, that task could be like, I've got to edit this episode, and then you have to split that into smaller chunks because you couldn't take a break after editing an entire episode because you'd just be sat at your desk for 3 days. But yeah, but then also like, I find it really important that to like limit this is gonna sound really boring, but like limit my screen time in the evenings. Like I really rarely watch TV nowadays. Like I'm very much more, I read and I will go outside. And you know, I find that, I mean, where I work now is in the middle of Soho, inside with no windows. So it's very like important that like even, you know, taking a tea break or just going and standing outside for 5 minutes, getting that fresh air, recentering, and then getting back on with it. But you're so right, Lewis, because as you say, like those breaks need to be 5 minutes, otherwise you're never going to finish what you need to do. But yeah, I don't know, Adam, if you have a different. Do you guys both work at home? That was sort of a follow-up question. Yeah. So I guess do you find it easier to take breaks at home or no?
It's tricky because it is also your workplace, so I find it more difficult to stay away from work. Kind of on the reverse of that. But to take breaks, yes, but there's a lot more distractions around. I've got a cat who is always wanting my attention, so she is just jumping up and down half the time, and whenever that's happening, I can't do anything. But there's also like the looming presence of there's a PS5 like 2 meters away from me. I could just grab the controller, you know. It's always that. There's a bit of a tolerance. I don't think that's the right word. A bit of
Self-control.
Self-control is exactly the word. Yeah. To just not go and do things like that. That is something that you kind of have to learn over time, and just be disciplined.
Yeah.
How's it, Adam? What's your?
Sorry,
I was just gonna say, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a couple of comments in the chat about using like relaxing your eyes. Ben's saying, you know, looking out of the window, looking at the distance. So out of my window, I can like there's a car park next to our building, but I can't see the car park, which is nice. But then I've got a clear view to this big church that's like maybe 250 meters away, and so I just look out the window and gaze at that every now and again. And then I remember I also have to get up and move around and like, you know, physically do something else. But I'm with you, Lewis, on the goals. I have a burst of energy and I like set myself a goal, but I always forget how many I've done. So I more like measure, you know, I zoom out to like max on the project, and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to do a thumb. Like I'm going to do a thumb's worth of files, and then once I've got through that, cool, I can take my break. But it's not very often that I'm doing something like that these days. So I tend to be more like multitasking, doing a lot of stuff, talking to people, you know, working with writers or designers, or like trying to figure something out in the engine. And that can really absorb you because it's sort of like a layered problem. You're like, okay, it's not this, it's this, or could be that. And then I find it really, really helpful to like have either meetings that happen and get me up out of my desk, or, you know, because I'm at the office a few days a week as well, which is only down the road. So then, you know, lunchtimes we get together at the office and we like have a big group of, there's other voice people at the studio as well, and they're great to talk to, and like we share problems, or like, how do you do this, or how have you done that on this project? I think also I've noticed, I used to be terrible at getting enough sleep, and in the last few years I've sort of just fixed my sleep schedule by, I don't know, like actually going to bed at a reasonable time instead of 1 in the morning and getting up at 7. And just that extra hour or so of sleep has really, really helped. Like I don't have kids or anything like that to distract me, so maybe that'll change one day. But like it's, yeah, I think sleep's a big thing too, because then I can, my attention span is so much bigger, and I can do something, switch away, come back, feel energized, rather than just being tired all day and just functioning on coffee, which is not a great place to be.
Sorry.
I can say another little hack is just have like a big bottle of water nearby, because that forces you to have breaks as well by going to the toilet, and it keeps you hydrated. That's like a win-win all around there. That'd be a little tip for you.
Yeah, lots of
What
water.
about you, Tera?
Yeah, I mean, you guys kind of nailed it. I mean, for me, like, I don't know if any of you have it, but I have ADHD. I was diagnosed like way back, and it's been self-managed. But with ADHD, you get distracted easily, but there's also a lot of times where you can hyper focus on something, and you can spend hours on one thing uninterrupted. So it's a lot of balancing between like when I know I need to take a break because like I'm getting too distracted. I need to like even just lay on the floor for like 5 minutes. Like sometimes I just lay on the darn floor and just like disassociate a little, right? And then I'm like, okay, I'm good, and I can get back to work. But then there's other times where I have like a sprint of like 2 hours where I really hone in on something, and then I definitely give myself a longer break after doing that. So it kind of really depends, but you just kind of have to know yourself, know how long you can focus for, right? Know if it's productive, and kind of work your way to, you know, finding out the best balance for you in terms of like work and breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely agree.
Exactly.
Awesome. Okay, that's all the questions that I have bolded here on our little spreadsheet. So I'm going to go into the Q&A and see if I can find some good questions.
There've been quite a few in the chat as well, but I haven't really been keeping up with it.
I know some people are asking all over the place. Let's see here. How about, let's do this one by Paul. What tips would you suggest for recordings and cleaning up purely breathing sessions for games?
Ooh. Make sure they're not on a creaky floorboard before they start recording. We've done a few of those where people are like, okay, I'm going to do the running breathing now. And then they're on the spot and it's like, oh God, we're going to have to move or put more carpet down. How are we going to fix this? Because we can't fix that in post. It's just too much. Or we actually had an actor who had to do breathing for out of breath stuff, and he would run around the studio. We had quite a big space. It was like an old ADR stage, an old mixed theatre that they turned into an ADR stage. And so there's a big space at the front, and he would run around and maybe do like some squats or jumps or push-ups, and then come back to the microphone and then do his lines, but often like, bah, immediately. And we're like, okay, God, for levels, all right. So yeah, I mean, most of my solutions are going to be like before the editing stage, but yeah, what do you think? What do you guys think?
I'm pretty similar, to be honest. Like we have in ADR studios that we have our floor is kind of like elevated, so for sound. Oh my God, what is the word?
Isolated.
Isolated. Thank you. Yeah, and so basically, it's when we do like the running breaths or fight passes and stuff, we have to be kind of careful with what the actors are wearing, if they've got their headphone cable around the back of their shoulder, making sure they're not hitting anything, and yeah, just making sure that they don't stomp their feet, because if they do that, like you have to, it's so funny when you explain it, because you're kind of trying to ask them to look a bit insane while they do it.
Yeah.
Because it's like you have to keep your feet planted, but you can move your arms a little bit and you can bounce on your knees, and like it's like, okay, just look crazy for like half a minute, it's fine. But yeah, it's just making sure. And your recordist usually, do you guys have like ADR mixes for games, or do you guys record it?
I mean,
depends.
Yeah, it varies.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. So, but I mean, normally for me anyway, like the recordist would always point out anything that would create any cleanup issues for me after. Yeah. Other thing as well about.
Sorry, Abbie, just like quickly on that note, we've also asked actors to dress specifically as well, because like so many times people come in with jewelry and chains and things. We're like, you're going to be moving around a lot, so we're going to need to. So actually, some actors would. After the first session, I mean, this was when I was working at Lionhead Studios, we used to have to tell people, like, bring comfortable, non-noisy clothing. And people would still turn up in, like, polyester.
Shell suit or something.
Yeah, like, all this noise. Sorry, Abbie.
No, that's super interesting, because it's, I mean, we always ask them, as soon as they come in, it's like, you got to take all your jangly jewelry off, like, almost immediately. But the other thing I was going to say is, specifically for breathing, the amount of times I've asked people to blow their nose is ridiculous. It's like, as soon as you can start hear a little bit of a wheezy tone, you're like, blow your nose.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that comes up so often. And I was in a session recently where the director brought his kid, and his kid was really on it, like really clued in. And the actor like had a bit of hay fever going on, and the kid was like, oh, you should blow your nose before you do this take. And then the guy was like, no, I'm fine. And then he did this, started, and he immediately like couldn't do it, because he it was just one of those amazing moments where you were like, oh, this 12-year-old is amazing. But it's so true. You do have to just make sure you blow your nose for breath takes and stuff, because otherwise you get that wheeziness, or like you sound a bit wrong, in like it doesn't sound natural, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, just interesting.
Lewis, anything to add?
I'm just reading Lewis Thompson's comment. It's just super rude. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I mean, these are all really cool tips. I'm not often in the recording situation, but I mean, from things that we've been sent from other actors and stuff, I think just actual recording of it, making sure the mic's not directly in front and they're not breathing into the mic, because that can cause just some serious low end and clipping. So avoiding that is crucial. In terms of the editing side, kind of going on to the wheezy thing that you said before, sometimes you can see that spectrally. You'll see like this line. I can't have that type of thing in unless it's like specific to the character. It really takes my ear away from it. So I will often just find that pitch of the hue that's playing when the breath is happening. And I'll just have to attenuate it and get it out there without being too destructive. As well as that, having like a low cut on everything is usually quite good for that type of stuff. If you're not doing it already, most stylers probably should have a low cut from 80 hertz below. But yeah, most of the time, again, it's trying to capture the performance. Most of the hard work is done at the recording stage. So you don't often have to do a whole lot for breathing. But also top and tailing can be super useful to get your timings right if you need that.
Awesome.
I would add, just on the editing side of things there, Tera, I'm just trying to think about this question from like another angle. If you have suggestions for recordings and cleaning up purely breathing sessions, I think it's important to like have an in-breath and an out-breath together. And sometimes people, I mean, you can also do them separately, and like you could have a bunch of out-breaths and a bunch of in-breaths, but like remember to categorize and maybe also slate your takes, because you don't want to just get to the session and be like, okay, it punches in and you just got loads of breathing and you have to work out what it's for. That said, quite often we'll end up using stuff that we've recorded for something that we weren't intending to use it for, because it just sounds better. So we're like, okay, we do the sprinting, that sounds like jumping. Okay, we'll use that for jumps instead, because the character jumps and dives and rolls. Or and yeah, like other than denoising and cutting the low end, I've also found RX FabFilter. I love the de-esser, and I use the FabFilter's EQs a lot and the compressor. And I can't remember if is it a FabFilter plugin or an RX plugin that's the de-breath.
That's RX, I
RX.
think.
Yeah.
For like just taming the really intense ones, you can just bring it down a tiny bit and like run that on a chunk of breaths, and then it'll, you know, rather than having to manually attenuate all of the big ones, that can be a bit of a time saver.
Just to add on to that, Greg Lester's recently introduced me to Soothe. That's also great for those sharp S's if you're not already using Soothe 2 by Oak Sound. That's also quite a nice little tool to have in your arsenal. Also, when you guys are editing breaths and stuff, do you forget to breathe? Because I know I do. I'm so focused on listening to them breathe, I'm like not breathing myself. I don't know, maybe that's just a me thing.
No, I find that I end up breathing at the same time as them, which then means I don't breathe when I'm not listening to it. It's a weird thing, isn't it? When you sort of, odd.
We've had so many actors nearly pass out doing breathing recordings as well. So like when you're recording them, make sure your actors are aware what they're doing, because it could constitute vocally strenuous work. Like if the actor comes in for a 4-hour session and then they're not expecting to be doing a lot of breathing, then they might not be prepared for it. But make sure that you keep an eye on them, like watch them. They don't go pale and suddenly. And if someone does faint, then know what to do then. Like if somebody passes out, and they shouldn't, but if they do, then get them on the floor and lift their legs up, and then the blood will go back to their head and they'll come back quickly. But
just hold them by the ankles. Just
not saying it's happened, but
in case anyone is ever
just
in that
case.
position.
Yeah.
in case it happens, yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to mark this as answered. We probably have time for one, maybe two more, but I don't want to push us too far because we are already past the hour. I guess real quick, if I do select this question, Have you guys worked with different languages at all?
A little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, tiny bit.
A little bit. I think I will spotlight this one then. This is from Anonymous. You have any experience working with dialogue in a language that you don't understand? Is it feasible? Might it be better unlocking a more intuitive approach? I think it's a really good question.
That is a good question.
From what I've had in terms of experience with different languages, it's kind of been specific characters, and they'll be speaking a dialect there because of that's where the character's from, what have you. And I think in terms of kind of editing for it, you can kind of separate what you should expect to hear from a human voice and what you shouldn't be hearing. So like whenever I'm like, for instance, a click isn't something that's very common in many languages, so you can kind of hone into those and pick them out. But there are some things where you will have to kind of check the text or the translation for some of the things. Like when I worked on the audiobook, it was a Korean drama, and we had quite a lot of Korean actors coming in.
Oh.
So we had the Korean text that was created for the script, and we had a romanization version of it, so it would be almost how you were pronouncing it, which made things a lot easier. So if you can get that for your native language, that would probably make this process a lot more streamlined for you. And then just approach it as if it would be a set of words from a human voice, and then just kind of pick out the stuff that you don't want to have in there, really. But yeah, getting it into something familiar to you is probably the best way to approach it.
That is so cool. Like, I know Korean. I lived in Korea for 2 years, so I think that is like
Wow.
amazing that you were able to edit something. Like, I'd probably be able to understand it a little bit, but yeah, having the romanization helps a lot, because Korean, they don't even have their own language. It's all character writing, kind of like Chinese and Japanese and stuff like that. It's very neat. It's very easy to learn. Thankfully, you could probably take like half an hour to an hour to learn Hangul, which is what it's called. But yeah, being able to like understand and do all that, yeah, because I just think that's really cool. Sorry, I'm geeking out.
Just quickly on the Korean front, Tera, what I did learn a little bit of Hangul at one point, and I thought the coolest thing about that was the vowel sounds, or is it the S's and the S, the noises. Like if the picture is the shape of your tongue and your teeth when you make that sound. So there's one that's like two V's, like inverse V's and a line, and that's like a sh, I think, or something like that, and it's your teeth. And then there's another one that's like a tongue, and it's like up here, and that's a g, and it's like at the back of your throat. So it's a very clever language. Yeah,
it wasn't always that way. They had a different, we're getting way off topic now, but it was a different
Chinese.
writing system.
Chinese,
and then who came in and did the actual I'm blanking
of some sort.
Yeah, I'm blanking on the name, but he created the Hangul, which is a lot easier to understand and write. But yeah, that entire system was amazing and still is. But yeah, sorry, got off track there.
It's amazing to work with linguists. Like if you ever get the chance, if you're working on a project that's got like a really specific accent, like dialect coaching, or linguists who specialize in that stuff, is really something. I mean, I want to do it just because I'm interested, but like you'll get so much out of it as a dialogue person. I'll segue into my answer quickly, because working on the Avatar Frontiers of Pandora game, we got to work with Paul Frommer, Dr. Paul Frommer, who invented the Na'vi language. And we had to, like, the game is in accented English, and there's a few scenes that kind of explain that. But basically, we're hearing Na'vi, but we're actually interpreting it as English. And working with these dialect coaches and the people who invented the language on all of the sessions that touched Na'vi language or the accent was like, I mean, it was a big investment from the company, but we were very privileged to be in that position to do that and to do it justice, which we had to do for such a big IP and such like a beloved franchise. And that was just astonishing. By the end of it, you're kind of learning this accent yourself, and the actors are coming along. And there was this amazing thing they used to say, if you're feeling comfortable with the accent, it's probably wrong, because this accent has to feel really uncomfortable to do. It's like such a mix of different languages and accents. And so yeah, I mean, we used to have to edit that stuff, and we'd have to send it off to Lightstorm Entertainment, and they would have to send us back approval from the people who were actually in charge of the language. So like yeah, that's the hard way of doing it. But it came out amazingly. So
Yeah, it's very similar for me. Like we have usually projects have with different languages have dialect coaches attached, and normally we get notes back from them. We don't ever have them um, necessarily always in the room. Like a lot of the time they'll like join in on Zoom or something, but they tend to they'll go through the episode, they'll send us their notes and tell us what's wrong with it. We'll mark it up, and then in the session they'll be there potentially on Zoom to then go through it. But yeah, it's funny how much you sort of pick up sometimes as well, because I had to do a whole crowd session for the power in Arabic, and I was having to learn little bits of Arabic here and there to try and remember what they were saying, so I was putting things in the right time. The other thing to do as well with that, maybe less so when you're in an ADR session, but for crowd in particular, if I'm doing a crowd session with different languages, which I've done, loads of Hungarian, Arabic, French, German, all sorts. In those situations, if you're doing little call outs, for example, it's sometimes really useful to get them to just really quickly translate it after they've said it, just so that then you're not putting anything in that is wrong, basically. But that's kind of the approach from the film side, that we'd always have somebody there to deal with it in a way, so that you don't have to worry about it so much.
I suppose the difference for us is the sheer quantity of voice content, like the amount of individual voice lines in a game can be from 20,000-30,000 lines to like a couple of 100,000. And I mean, the last games that I've done have been in English, but we also localize, and we have this whole localization department that does all that stuff. We work with outsourcers, and I mean, for that project, we had I can't remember how many languages exactly, maybe 5 or 6, but on the division, we were doing 10 languages total for voice, plus a bunch more just for text, like for subtitles, and for that, quite often you would get, like, you were doing processing or voice processing for an effect, like a radio effect, or like this echo effect where you were watching something that happened in the past, and we would make it kind of, it's like a digital recreation of the environment. And sometimes you need like a particular word to land on a moment or an animation, but then you have the Arabic or the French or the German, or like so many other languages we're also trying to do, and we're listening for the keyword, which is not translated. It's like it's directly spoken, so they'll say like Isaac or shade or something for the brand specific words, and then you're like, okay, I don't really understand Arabic, but I can do that. But Spanish, I understand a bit of. I can figure that out. Okay, we've got to cut out this word from all of these languages and then see if we can piece it back together. So I have these sessions with like 10 different voice files, and like do that. Okay, stick it together, comp it. Okay, cool. Now I put the effect on it and put it back into the game, run the build, and then like a couple of hours later, you can check it out and see if it works in the engine itself. It's like a long process.
That's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, I know for the Harry Potter game, we did have multiple languages as well for like the announcers, and we had like rival Theo as well, based on like whatever team. Like if you're Slytherin, and then Harry Potter would show up on the screen because you're facing Gryffindor, and he would say something. I don't really think we did too much editing for the other languages, because we did have a localization team as well. WB owns the IP and things like that. So I think WB kind of took care of that on our end for Unbroken Studios. But there were a couple, I think, that maybe the lead audio designer had to work with. But for the most part, I think we just had to kind of offload it and give it to someone else to kind of work on, because there's so many languages to go through. So it kind of just made sense to compartmentalize and give them, each of those teams their specific language. So really great question from Anonymous. Thank you for asking that. Let's just do one last question. I know we have like 8 minutes, but let's try to be quick. I'm just going to try to find another good question here. I am kind of curious about. I'm trying to find it. Where are you? This one. I think a fairly quick question, hopefully. When editing dialogue from raw recording, do you have a line number per hour you can typically do, or how many lines can you expect to get done in a day?
That's slightly different
They really do.
for me. Sorry, in
After
terms
you,
of
Abbie,
like,
after you.
oh, thank you. I was just gonna say it's not about like lines per hour when editing raw dialogue for us. Like we sort of have this thing, me and the guys that I work with, we sort of say like 10 minutes of editing a day. Like 10 minutes of an episode is about right. Sometimes you have really good days and you can get up to like that 15-minute mark. Sometimes you have terrible days where you've got the worst scene and it's really complicated and it has like bits that are just, you know, you have to put in a lot of work to get it to work. So you might only get 5 minutes done that day. You know, but like on average, I think for me, it's like, yeah, 10 minutes or so. But then for ADR, the timing is based upon you should get a line in 5 minutes. So for the way that they do the timing allowances for ADR is that, so 5 minutes per line. So however that maths. That's how then the coordinators can decide how long actors need and stuff. But that's probably very different.
You get like 12 done in an hour.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so dyslexic and I just couldn't couldn't do that.
But then you probably have to factor in breaks and stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how long the session is. Like, if it's like, let's say it's like just an hour to a 2 hour session, then you wouldn't really break unless the actor needed anything. If it's 4 hours, then you kind of go, okay, we're sort of maybe halfway. Let's just take 5 and sort ourselves out. If you're doing all day, then you take lunch. Like it's just to make sure that you're breaking up and stuff. A really interesting thing that's been happening recently actually is I've had a couple of people in who have tinnitus, and we have to like sort of schedule regular like listening breaks for them, which is something that I've never really had to factor in before either. So that's kind of interesting. But obviously that then takes up a certain amount of time as well. Sorry, that's a bit of a tangent from the point, but I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of again, as Abbie said, it varies quite a lot depending on what the quality of the recording is like, how much cleanup is actually necessary, etc. From my experience, within a day, or should I say like 8 hours, give or take breaks and stuff, you're probably expecting about 20 minutes of complete dialogue to be done. We again depends entirely on, it can sometimes be 10, sometimes be 25 if it's just like small emotes or what have you. But yeah, about 20 minutes per day is roughly what we can kind of expect.
I was having a conversation, similar topic. Sorry, Abbie.
No, you carry on. I was just going to tag on something else, but you carry on.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with a colleague, Charles Pateman. He's another guy who works with us. And he was dialogue lead on the Star Wars Outlaws game, and we were talking about how much you can edit or how much you could like process, and because like being on this side of the table, I'm not so exposed to that sort of thing. I'm not receiving big files and doing them, but occasionally something comes up, and I'm like, I want to keep my tools sharp. I want to try and keep going, not get rusty. So I'll just jump on something and like, oh, you've got a trailer to make, so I'll have a go. And we were saying that, you know, if it takes an hour to record, then maybe it'll take you 2 hours to edit. And that's kind of a rough, like worst case scenario guide. And then maybe it's going to take you an hour because it's quick. But, you know, if you have to budget for that, plus you're also answering emails, plus you're getting pestered about other things, or you're like teaching somebody or training someone, or like someone's shadowing you, then those things go down, right? And then we get into like work estimates and like how long is it going to take you to do this task? How do you estimate that based on your experience in the past, or based on what you know about this project or the person you're doing it for? So yeah, I mean, I guess the answer is like have a go and see how many you can do. You can probably get, I don't know if people do this, but like maybe you can get a raw session from somebody online as like for fun, and just send me your stuff and have a go and see like how quickly you can edit it. And then maybe you get, again, I'm sort of tangenting myself, but like I get to the end of the session, I go, I wish I'd done it this way, or I wish I'd made a template, or I wish I'd next time, and then I never do it. And then the next time comes along and it's like, okay, I could probably have done with sorting out this process before I went through it. So yeah, you'll find you'll get quicker.
Yeah. You'll absolutely, like, there's always something that you can learn from, your previous editing sessions, or just like anything in general, right? Like you can always learn from it, always improve, optimize things. That's when I started making a template for like all my YouTube reaction stuff, right? Like I finally have a template in Reaper now where it's just got the RX already slapped on there. I even added de-esser recently because someone was commenting saying that my sibilance is really bad. And I'm like, well, no one else has mentioned it, but fine, I'll put a de-esser on there too. So it's all about like learning and growing, and yeah, you will get faster in time, just like Adam said. And yeah, it's just having some sort of baseline. So I definitely agree with just see how far you get, right? See how many you can do, and then go from there and see how you can make it faster through, different tools and templates and things like that. I think that's probably just the best way to do it. But yeah, another awesome question. Yeah, we're just about there. So thank you guys so much for joining us this panel. Thank you to Airwiggles for having us. We hope that this was fun, insightful, informative to all of you. And yeah, I don't know if anyone has any last words, but otherwise I think we are done.
Just thanks for watching, guys. It's really nice to know people have interest in what we do.
Exactly. Yeah, couldn't say it better.
Enjoy the rest of AirCon and buy merch.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Gotta have that. Nice marketing.
But thank you so much, Tera, for hosting. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, yeah.
My
You
pleasure.
did a great job.
Thank you. All right, bye everyone.
Bye. Bye.